Hi, this is Craig Beals. I've had a whole bunch of questions about how to build an effective Google site. So I decided I'd put together a little tutorial here and build a site to show you the process for using Google Sites. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to have a Google account. If you don't yet have a Google account, go get one. They're free. Log into Google. And once you have one, you can log in. And you're going to see whatever icon up here. Then this little area is called the dashboard. So in the dashboard has all the tools that Google has given you now that you have a Google account. I'm looking for Google Sites. It's not going to show up for most people over there, which means I need to go down to this screen and start looking at all of these great tools that Google is giving me. And I see right down here, Google Sites. Now Google Sites is mainly made for like intranet, but there's many other things you can use it for as well. I'm going to show you some of those. When you're ready to make your site, simply go over here to Create, click on that, and it will pop up with some options. You can choose an already built template. You can browse through a whole bunch of them. I'm going to name my site, let's see, we'll call it How to Sites. You cannot put Google down here, and you cannot put admin in the name or it won't work. There may be some other things as well you can't put in there. I'm not aware of them. But if it's giving you a URL, something where it's saying it's not working, try a different name. You can always change it later on. You can see there's all sorts of options here that are already given to you. You can select blank. I'm going to click on Tron just to see what that gives us. I'm going to come down here to more options, site description, how to build a Google site. I can always add or take away from that later on. I need to let it know that I am not a robot. It will check me out and says I'm good. As soon as I click the create button, I've just made a Google site. But this is the framework for the site. It's completely customizable, and that's what I'm going to walk you through step by step in all of these different tutorials. But this is my bare bones site as I have it right now. So I've got my site. Probably the first thing to look at is how to edit a page. When I need to edit and I'm ready to add something, I come up here to edit page. I click on that and it's going to bring up the page editor. This is again completely customizable, but let's just keep it simple for now. Within this site are instructions for how to build a Google site. Perfect. Generic, but it'll work. This is a normal word processing editor, just like is used for Google Documents. So the options here are just like they would be anywhere else. So I can start to add a lot to this. You're going to see it change as the site develops. But for right now, simply all I have to do is click the save button. It is saved. It is live. I could share this URL with anybody in the world, and they'd be able to see exactly what I changed at this point. But let's say that maybe on this page I want to insert an image to make it look nice. All of my insert options are up here. Formatting, for how to change, those are the same formatting options as Google Docs. I can put a table, and layout I'll get to in just a little bit. But let's go ahead and start with something simple like inserting an image. It'll bring up a screen here. You can find an image online. Be careful, of course, if it's a copyrighted image. But I'm going to find an image on my computer to go ahead and put on this page as an example. So I go to Upload Images. So I'm going to click on that. And this is one that I just like to plop on a lot of stuff. I teach chemistry, so this is my little symbol in chemistry. And just like that, I now have an image that lives on my web page. I can alter the size for this. I can alter the position of where I want this to show up, and I can even text wrap. I can delete it by clicking right over here, and if I click the save button, it is now live. It lives on my web page. Anybody that comes along can click on that and it'll pull up full page picture. So now we've inserted an image, which is easy enough. Have to refresh that. There we go. So I've got the makings of a home page. It's nothing fancy, but it's a starting point. Again, I can change all of this later on, including the header and all of this in later tutorials. But let's go to the next thing. Let's add a page to this. So I've got my front page. It's going to get prettier over time, but I've got the foundations. So I come up here to create page. That's going to add another page to my site. It takes to create our new page. I'm going to call this one beginner. So just getting started. I click create and I've got the makings of my new page. You can see I've got two pages over here. I've got home, I've got beginner, and then I've got room to type right here. Here's the things I'm going to cover on this page or in the building of this page. We've already covered a few of these. I'm going to move this in. Let's make it a little bit larger. We'll make it bold just for now to be able to see that very easily. We have edited a page. We did that on the last one. We just created a new page. We did it right here. But there's a couple other steps we need to do, like adding a YouTube. So I'm going to add a YouTube video up here to the top of this. Apologize. Let me scroll down, and then I'm going to have to delete that. There we go. And the way I do that, I go up here to insert, find YouTube down here, and click on that. And then I need to go out and find a URL for a YouTube video that I want to use. So I've found my YouTube page, and I'm just going to pick a placeholder video here, something just to take the spot, because eventually the video that I'm making right now is the video that's going to go in there. So I click on the share, I Command C if you're using a Mac, and I Command V, I paste that in there, and now my YouTube video is on here. I click on the video, I can change the position of it. I can actually change lots of information like the title, anything else I want, and the second I hit the save button, it's now live, and this is what my page looks like. I can play that YouTube video from directly in the browser just like this. So we've done all of the following, and now we're down to adding a Google Doc into your Google site. The way we do that, we go back up to Edit Site, we go back over here to Insert, and we come over to Drive. So our Google Doc or our document has got to be in our Drive. I click on Documents, it's going to bring up all of my documents that I've got. I'm just going to pick one here at random, your element, and I'm going to center this, and I'm going to click the Save button. So this is an activity that I actually do with my chemistry students where they choose an element, and now this thing is embedded right in my web page. I'm going to press Command and then the minus button, so it makes my screen a little smaller. You can see I've got that whole document in here. I've got everything else we worked on down below, and if I come in here I can scroll up and down just inside the document and do my work inside of there. Now, one thing that I don't particularly care for is where I've put this. So I can change that. I can also change the width. I can change the actual document, anything I want in here. But I'm going to go back, and I'm actually going to delete this, and I'm going to move it down here to the bottom. So if I scroll down, it'll show up. So now I've got YouTube. I've got a Google Doc inside of there. What if I want a Google Form, something where my students or somebody in the intranet, if I was using my Google site within a company, can take a survey and use one of my Google Forms that I've created. Go back up here to Edit Page, and I'm going to put the form down below the document. So let me put it down here, make a little space, go back to Insert, over here to Drive, find Form, and I'm going to click on one here at random. Apparently this is one I gave several years ago to my students. I'll go ahead and center that, click the Save button to see what it looks like. Again, every time I hit Save, it is live. So here we go. There's the end of the year survey from my classes for 1 year. But look, it doesn't quite fit inside of there. So this is a good lesson. Let's go back up to the top and click on the Edit Page button. Scroll back down here to the bottom and find there's that spreadsheet form. I click on it and it brings up the options to edit this. Now look, it says the height is 600 pixels, but the width, that's where I'm having problems. If I delete that and leave it blank, it's going to resize. Click Save and see what it does. There we go. Now I can see the entire form inside the page. It fits nicely, and any of the data that's entered into that will show up magically inside my Google Forms. If you don't know how to use Google Forms, that's a good thing to learn. It's incredibly valuable. You can even have students take quizzes inside Google Forms if you want to use it that way. Now, come back down here to my list. What if I want to just add a file? Maybe I want to add an image file. Maybe I want to add a PDF. I can do that. Down here where it says Add Files, there's a comment section down here. I'm going to show you how to turn that off or turn that on if you don't want that to be there. But I'm going to click the Add Files. It'll bring up all the files on my computer. So I've found a picture I want to add so that my students in my chemistry class can access a high quality periodic table to do their work, for example. And it's uploading right now, and look at here. It shows up right down there. Students can click on it and they'll get a preview. And look, I don't even have to be in the editor for this to work. I can add files whenever I want. I'll show you when you click on this, it'll bring up a preview of that image. I can click the back button and I'm right back at my web page, which I'm going to have to refresh it because it took me back. Now, here it is down here. If a student wanted to download that, or if somebody wanted to download it, right there, they can download it and they'll have it on their computer. And you can always delete these files later on by clicking that delete button. So we've just about covered everything. Okay, there's a couple things left, like configuring the navigation in Google Sites and adding a URL. So two more things. Let me explain what this means, configure navigation in Google Sites. Here's our navigation bar over here, but one thing I want to show you with that is the share button. The share button allows you, maybe you're not ready for the world to see this or for people to be able to access, or maybe you want other people to be able to work on it as well. So you come in here and you click, you can change any of this, and you can say that it's private until you're really ready to share it with the world. But right now I've got this thing live, it's ready to go. You can even add collaborators who can edit or can just view. Maybe you want to work on this with somebody else. So really, just like a Google Doc, you can share this within or without and make it public or unpublic. Let me go back a little bit. And the last thing I want to cover is adding a URL in Google Sites. So this is very easy. You go back to your edit. I'm going to highlight adding a URL in Google Sites. So I go like this. I go up to hyperlink. And look, it gives me all sorts of options. Web address, I can do scripts, I can do recent changes, I can do it directly to one of my other pages. What if I go ahead and do a web address? And I'm going to do www.bealsscience.com, the page that I use with my classes all the time. There we go. So now adding a URL in Google Sites, I can see what the URL is. I can change it. I can remove it. The second I hit save, it is alive and ready to go. Now watch. If I go ahead and click on that, it should open up in a different world. And look, I've got a live link. So those are the beginning stages. This is what's covered on this page. The next one, and this is going to get cleaned up, it'll look much nicer sort of when you look at the actual web page. But the next step I'm going to do is sort of the intermediate level things. We're going to look at page settings, look at the revision history. The biggest one is the page templates. Try to make this look a little bit nicer and nicer. We're going to edit the header. So if you don't like the way this looks up here right now, we're going to edit that. And again, just make this a little more user friendly. So check out the next one if you want to customize your site even more. If not, you're ready to go. It's totally usable. It just may not be exactly the way you want it to look. When you're ready for that, go to the next one. So let's examine the intermediate steps. We've looked at all the beginning stuff. Now let's take it up to a little higher level. We're going to be mainly working off of this cog over here, which has the page actions. We're going to go all the way down through site actions with our intermediate stuff. And let me just sort of explain. The revision history, you can look at any changes that you've made. You can subscribe to page changes where it'll send you an email. The page settings is a really important one, so let's click on that. This is shows the page title up at the top. I'm going to unclick that later on because I'm going to put a custom header up there. So actually let's unclick it now and there'll be nothing at the top. You can leave it or not. I'll show links to subpages. I don't have any yet. I'm going to allow attachments, and I'm going to get rid of the comments, mainly just because I think it clutters everything up down there at the bottom. You'll see these changes. So the comments are going to go away down there, and it starts to look a little bit better, although a little bit barren as well. Let me go back up here to page settings. We can print, copy, move the page to somewhere else. A nice one is preview what a viewer is going to see when they come here without that editor up at the top. I'll close that and come back to my editing view. Then I get down to page templates. I can save this page template, although I haven't done anything fantastic that needs to be saved. I can change it. I told you at the beginning you could go back and change some of these features about this, and I'll I'll get into that a little more with themes coming up, but that's in the advanced, so the next section. It won't be in here. I can subscribe to site changes. Again, I'll get an email. This is if you're collaborating with somebody else. It's useful. And then edit site layout is a big one. Let's go ahead and click on that. When you get into edit site layout, now you can really start to make this thing look the way you want. Right now I've got a sidebar with my navigation. Let's say I wanted to do maybe horizontal, where it moves it up here across the top, and I wanted to get rid of this sidebar. Now, see what happens. The only thing I have over here now is my home page, which is a bit of a problem. Let me go back to my sidebar because I have more pages than that. So let me retry. I'm going to go to edit site layout. I'm going to go back to the sidebar, and you can see I've got these other pages in here, but they're not showing up in my horizontal navigation. But if I click on that, now it brings up my configure navigation bar. This is all the stuff that would show up on that horizontal navigation. I can add pages, which I'm going to do. I'm going to add all the pages I've made so far, which is beginner. Okay. And I'm going to add the one I'm making right now, which is intermediate. And I can even add a URL to this. So let's go to, I added a URL early on. Maybe I want to be like, I want to have something that takes my students back to bealscience.com. And I want that to open in a new window. When we click save, oh, and maybe I want them to be tabs or boxes. I can change that again. I can change it all later on as well. They're going to start to appear up here. Okay, and now maybe I can get rid of that sidebar. You could leave it if you want, but I'm going to try to unclutter things. I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, so this looks a little more accurate to what the page would be like. This shows you right here I'm on the intermediate. That's why it's a different color. If I click back to the beginner page, let me cancel that and close this. If I click back at the beginner page, it shows you the stuff that we did last time or on the other video. And let me come back to intermediate, click on that again. So we can change the colors of this, and we can change the header for that as well. And I sort of like to have these tabs at the top. I think it's more user friendly than on the side. So we just looked at edit the site layout. The next one, before we get into manage site, so this will be in the next video, and the sharing and permissions, but the manage site is a big one. That's where it's got all of the sort of behind the scenes. I'm going to go to one last one that I really think is important for myself, and I don't like this header. So what I've done, let me cancel this. All I've done is come up here, anything that I click on now, let me close this and go back. So I clicked on edit site layout. It gives me all these options here for how to change things. But I'm going to edit the site header. When I click on that, it gives me lots of options for things to do, and I'm going to go ahead and make a custom logo. Why not? You could go and find a picture online. There are actually header makers online. You could get all crazy with it, but I'm going to go a very simple route, and I'm going to use Google, the draw feature within my Google account, to make my own simple little header. So you may not have known this about your Google account, but if you look over here on the side, you've got the option to make your own drawings. And that'll pull up a really nice, very simple editor. So I'm going to make my header inside of here. It's going to happen very fast. We'll speed it up, and so you don't have to listen to me. So I've built my drawing within Google Draw, and I need to resize everything so that it fits. Let me move this up as much as I can, and you'll start to see why I need to do this. Okay, I go to File and I go Download As. I want that as a PNG so it has a transparent background, and then I'll be able to insert that. So it's in my downloads. I come back over here to my intermediate page, custom logo, choose File. So I've clicked on it in my downloads and I click OK. It should show up at the top. I'm going to close this and see how it looks. Okay, see one thing I don't like. I can see the border that exists around there. I don't really want that in there. Plus the black lettering is hard to see. Very easy to come back and change that. So now we've got our custom header up at the top and we're starting to get somewhere. This is looking a little better. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to remove some of the other stuff, or at least move it around, how to improve the view down here. But as you can see, if we go all the way back to home and we click on view page as, or preview page as a viewer, this is what we've got so far. And we've got our couple different pages: beginner, our instructions, our intermediate, where we took it up to make the site look a little bit better. And in the next one, we're going to start to look at, well, how do I customize things even more? And how do I make my website work for me? In fact, how do I change the name up here at the top? We'll even get into favicons, and we'll get into themes and colors and editing all of this stuff to make it look exactly the way you want it. Okay, we're at part 3 here, where we're going to get into the advanced settings within Google Sites. You're going to see this change as we go along. I'm going to come back up here and we're going to work down here in the site actions area, and really the biggest one is manage site. We already looked at edit site layout in the last one. The big one here is manage site. When I click on this, it's going to bring up all the inner workings of my site. If you remember a long time back, I named the site How To Sites 1 just as a placeholder, and it keeps showing up in the header of all of my pages. If I come back, you see it right here. Well, there's no need for that because I made a custom header up here at the top. So if I unclick, now it won't show up there. I'll have to save before I can see it. So this is a message that you could have for site visitors, the site notice. I'll probably fill that in later on. You can even have a URL to explain that. You can change the landing page, so maybe you want people to actually end up on a different page other than what you called your home page. You can click here and change that. You can delete the site, which I've done in the past. You make one as an example and go ahead and delete it if you don't need it anymore. You can configure search. I'm going to get into analytics a little later on. This is actually a really useful tool, and Google allows you to do it for free, but that'll be a tutorial in the pro version of all of this, which will come in a little bit, and then some more webmaster tools. I really like, in most cases, to click on the mobile, because so many people are using mobile devices these days. It'll reconfigure things to show up well on mobile, although it's not perfect. In fact, one of the sites I use, I've unclicked that because it reformats everything way too much. So just check. And then I've already said anybody can view this. I'm going to click the Save button. Everything I just did was right here under the general settings. But I'm going to come back up and walk you through these very quickly. There's our site activity. Sometimes you'll create pages and you don't know where they end up. And if you come here and click on pages, it'll tell you all the pages that you've built, which takes me back to here. Notice, we're on step 3 right now, but step 3 is not showing up. So I need to go back. Well, how do I add that? Go up here to Edit Site Layout. Click right here on my horizontal navigation and Add Page. It'll show me all the pages I have. We're on Advanced. I click OK, and now it's going to show up over here. But look, it's out of order. I don't like the way this is working out. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to change the order of these. Click on Advanced, move it up, hit OK, and I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. We're going to see how it looks. Well, there we go. Now I've got all three of them up there. I'm going to come back. Let me go back into this just to remind you how we got here. We're working on right down here in Manage Site, which brings up all the inner workings. And we just looked through the pages. Any attachments that you already have can go right in here. This is going to be really important coming up, because if you want to change the Favicon, which is that little thing right up there, we're going to do it inside this. I'll show you in the next one. You can change the templates. You can look at what you've got. If you're a scripts writer, you can write scripts and put it in there. It'll keep track of deleted items, at least for a certain amount of time. And then sharing permissions, we talked about that down the road or earlier. And the web address, which you can change lots of things, including a custom domain, which I'm going to show you how to do that later on. I think you can already see what the custom domain is going to be for my header, but I don't want to get there just yet. Instead, I want to focus down here on themes, colors, and fonts, because you could really get lost in this one and just start wading around into all sorts of things. I just pressed Command and the minus button. It's making everything smaller so I can actually see what's going on. Once I get in here, all my customization stuff is up here. Remember I said I could change my theme anytime I wanted? Well, here's where I can change that. But I can customize everything that I want to customize no matter what. Let's say I wanted a background picture on the entire page. Okay, I'm in background. Right now it's using all the theme stuff, but I could put an image back there if I wanted. I would just click on this and I would find an image inside my computer somewhere. Maybe I wanted some text back there. I don't want any of those. I've already got a text header. I made a custom one, but you can use a more simple one if you'd like. This takes me to my content area, which is all of this down here. So I can change the font that it's using. I can change the color, but it's all working out pretty well for me right now. The area gadgets, I'll show you how to add more gadgets later on. Google's got a ton of gadgets, and third-party people have made gadgets. And then the horizontal navigation is what we've got going on right up here. Now, I'm perfectly fine with it, but let's go ahead and change something. The background of each one of those is white. That's fine. What about the selected text? Notice we're on the home page, so it's blue, and it's got white. Let's just change that to C. The background color, when it's selected, let's go ahead and make that green. So there, I just changed it to green to show me what page it's on. Sure, that looks good going with our Google theme here. I think we'll leave it just like that. Again, you can change anything you want. I'm going to click the Save button. It should take me back to my page. And back to How To Sites 1, and here we go. I'm going to press the Command plus. This is just zooming me in and out to make it look a little more realistic. And this is our page. We've got everything in order. The one we're on is in green now. The one we're hovering over is the one we'd go to next. Next thing we look at is to get into the pro stuff. Let me tell you a little bit what we're going to cover. What about if you want to look at the statistics and the analytics of your site and how to enable Google Analytics to keep track of who's visiting your site? You can do a custom URL. So I've got one up here, but I don't own it yet. So I'm going to show you how to go in and purchase that and how to redirect your site to a custom URL. We can change the favicon, which is that little object up there, into anything we want. We can also embed other web pages in here. We can add slideshows. Really, the options are endless, and I'm going to walk you through a whole bunch of those coming up. So we made our way all the way to the pro settings, and the first thing I'm going to start with is using Google Analytics for Google Sites, and then I'll work through these other ones, but they'll be in probably other shorter videos. So to use Analytics, I need to sign into Google, which I'm already signed into. But remember the dashboard button up here that shows you all the great tools? If I go down and I go down to even more from Google, I'm going to get over here to business. Here's business. And then I find analytics, know your audience, and analyze your traffic. So I need to sign into this, and I'm just going to sign into regular Google Analytics. When you get into Google Analytics, it'll show I've got some existing things in there. If you go to admin and then click on account over here, you're going to see create new account. And that's going to give you the information that you need to paste into the new site that you've just created. so that you can actually see how that site is operating. So how do I do this? I fill out my account name. I'm going to call this how to Google Sites. I'll come back here and I'm going to go to the page. I'm going to go save. I'm going to go back to the site and I'm just going to start with this. I can come back and change this later on because, again, I don't have a custom URL. Oops, I need to get rid of this. That's better. This is what? Education. And I'm in Mountain Time. There we go. Now, you got a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with this, but I need to get the tracking ID. So I click down here. It's terms of service. I suggest you read those, but nobody does. And now all of a sudden I've got my tracking code. Now I'm using a Google Sites. So this is the tracking ID I can grab to my Google site, and I go back down to this Manage Site button. I want to be in the General, which is right down here. I'm going to scroll down the General until I get to Statistics. I'm going to go with use the Google Analytics. They're starting to move into the Universal Analytics. This is the one we just set up. I copied that ID and now I've just pasted it right here. I'm going to click Save. And my changes have been saved. In time, when I come back to my Google Analytics, I will be able to track and see exactly how many people have visited and see where they're coming from and learn all sorts of information about the people that are ending up at my site. So good luck. Next thing I'm going to look at here in the sequence in the professional style is getting that custom URL that we just talked about. So we've been building this site and I made a custom header for the top of it up there, but I don't even own that domain. So right now people would have to type in everything that you see up here to actually get to my site, which is a little bit tricky. Now you can shorten that URL. There's lots of things you can do. You don't have to purchase it. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to buy it. Maybe after a year I'll just fold it up and let it go to somebody else. But I want to show you the process to go through to get to that point. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to search through Google domains and see if the site name that I'm interested in that I've already put at the top there exists. And I have how to Google Sites. I'll search that. I also use GoDaddy. In fact, I use it for the majority of mine, but I chose to use Google in this example because we're putting all the Google products together into one. And this will tell me if I can indeed use that. And look there, it says howtogooglesites.com is available for $12 a year. I think I can do that for a year at least so people can learn how to run some of these sites. So I click on this. I'm going to fast forward through this for you, but I'm going to go through the checkout and see how it works. So I've purchased the domain for $12 a year and Google gives me all these options when I'm done, but all I want to do is forward it to the site that I already have. So I'm going to click down here to forward, and I already do have a site that I would like to use with that. That's the one I've been using over here. I'm on my home page, as you can see. I'm going to copy this, go back to my Google domains, and I'm going to drop this in here. Let's see if we can do the forward. So it has found the site that we just made and it has been forwarded. Sometimes this takes a little while for it to work, but we're going to check. So now if I go back and check, let's try it. www.howtogooglesites.com. It'll pop up and here's our site. Now we can also remap this to a different one. That's another tutorial I'll have to show you because you can do that in GoDaddy. You can do that with the Google Sites domain registry with lots of different ones. So I'll kind of have to put together a different tutorial for how to get that done. In case you don't want to see this, you want to see www.howtogooglesites.com up there at the top. But this will help you get that URL that people can remember and easily navigate themselves towards your site. So what if I want to change the favicon? That's the thing up here that shows up in the browser window. You can see some of them across the top. What if I want to change that and customize it into something else? Well, first of all, I can go out to the web, I can grab little pictures and put them in there, but I'm going to draw my own because I've gone into Google Draw, trying to keep this all with Google here, and I'm going to show you how to make this happen. This is going to speed up and show up on the screen, then I'll show you how to turn it into a favicon. So I've got my favicon. I can change this later on. Just something to show you the process. I'm going to download this as a PNG. Alright, now it's down here as a PNG. It gives it that transparent background that I really want. And then I can go to something like this website, which is favicongenerator.org. I like to use this one. And really what I need to do is go in there to my downloads and choose that file. So I've chosen that file from my downloads. I'm going to go down here. The one I want is just the ICO. I need that ICO file, and I don't need it to be public. And I don't need it to be square. We'll see how it turns out. I create that, and I can download it right here. Now I can see this ICO file down there. That's the one I need. I come back over here, and I go up to my Manage Site button right here. Then I find attachments. So my attachments are right here. And I'm going to upload my new attachment. So now I've clicked on that ICO, that Favicon ICO, and look, instantly it already changed. So now my Favicon is forever what that symbol, whatever I just made, my upside down G question mark, because I've got this ICO file inside of here. If I wanted to change that down the road, I delete this ICO file, make a new favicon, and put it in there. So it's as easy as that. Good luck. You can change favicons all day long if you want.